Welcome to Legislative Watch, where public policy is openly discussed and elected officials can report their activities directly to the people, unfiltered and unbridled. My guests today are two representatives, Representative Cliff Bayer from District 21, who is in his 5th term in the Idaho State Legislature, and Representative Phil Hart from District 3 in his 4th term in the legislature. Well, looks like things are getting ready to wind down a little bit, and hopefully you guys will be getting to go home in a couple weeks, if what I'm being told about the budget being set is...
I think that's right. We have a lot of appropriations that have gone through the committees and now are being considered in the House and Senate floors, and it looks like a few weeks out and should be able to wrap up. And of course that's our main mission. That's our main responsibility, is to set those appropriations in a balanced budget every year.
Sure, absolutely. I know that you were telling me before the program about a bill that you were interested in relative to beverage sampling use tax, and that kind of intrigued me. Tell us a little bit more about that one.
Well, it was very interesting. What happened is in between sessions all these activities take place on your state government, and this was with the Tax Commission, and they went in and started going back 3 years to these wineries in Idaho in particular, but not exclusively, also beverages, new types of sodas and drinks you might have at a Costco, and they said, technically we want to have a use tax, which is the equivalent of a sales tax, 6% on those items, even though they're just samples and you didn't sell anything. You have to come up with that tax out of your own pocket. And we felt that that was just wrong and had to address it through law, through statute. So I did sponsor a bill that addressed that and said, no, we are not going to have that practice in the state of Idaho. We're not going to collect sales tax when there's no actual sale, and you are just trying to broaden your consumers and draw business. And that was successful. That went all the way to the governor's desk, and so that's.
We should feel very good about that, because for one thing, the tax has already been paid on whatever beverage it is by the person that's selling it, and they're actually suffering a loss, if you will, because they're giving out samples hoping that people will buy, right?
That's correct.
But these people pay taxes that have these businesses and that are trying to promote their goods.
Particularly in the beer and wine industry, because they are paying those taxes.
Right.
Absolutely. So the items have already been taxed. Now, if somebody buys that, or if you're charging for an event, a tax is charged, but they've made a sale, so they've collected the tax. What was happening here is they weren't making a sale, and yet they were supposed to come out of with the tax out of their own pocket. And so we corrected that, and hopefully the dialogue this year led to addressing food samples, and hopefully next year we can remedy that.
So they're actually thinking about doing that with food samples too, charging a tax?
They technically can now, until we address that through law, and that gets a little bit more complicated because of some restaurant practices with free samples. But yes, the Tax Commission has not gone out and audited, to my knowledge, or been very aggressive about that, but they were with the wine industry recently, which led to this law.
Okay. Always looking for a way to broaden the revenue base, I guess, huh? All right. Now, last week we had Representative Pete Nielsen on, and he was talking about, I think, your bill relative to sound money. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Sure. That's House Bill 578. It's called the Idaho Constitutional Money Act of 2012. And it follows a similar bill in Utah that the Utah legislature passed last year, which would declare United States minted gold and silver coins to be legal tender in the state of Idaho. Utah did that for the state of Utah. And what we're hoping it would do is just facilitate the usage of gold and silver if folks wanted to do their business in that form of currency. And then it would also require the courts of Idaho to support or to enforce any contracts that were written using gold and silver as a medium of exchange.
Now, I know a couple years ago you had introduced some legislation because of the ability up north in your area to maybe mine silver and actually produce the coins there. But that didn't go anywhere because of what? Because of the fact that states aren't allowed to coin their own currency?
Elizabeth, under the Constitution, only the federal government can coin money. But the Constitution also mandates that the states use gold and silver coin for their legal tender, although of course we've forgotten that and we're not doing it anymore. But I thought, since we have what we call the silver capital of the world in North Idaho in the Silver Valley, that it would be good for our local economy if we could pull silver out of the ground, mint it into a coin or a medallion, and use that as a medium of exchange in Idaho. But you know, we can't do that because all the silver ore, when it comes out of the ground, it goes overseas to be smelted. It goes to...
So we can't smelt it here?
We are not smelting it here. I suppose we could, but that would require the EPA to sign off on the smelter. And the American mining industry has just decided not to have many smelters in the United States and to ship all of our ore overseas to be processed.
Is that because of environmental concerns, or is it because of the cost issues involved with it?
It's because the EPA's regulations are so tight. Evidently, it's cheaper to ship it overseas. So what we do in the United States is we concentrate the ore, and then we send it. In the Silver Valley, the ore goes to Belgium, Finland, China, Korea, Mexico, and Canada to be processed.
Wow. Okay.
And it's all trucked out of the valley because we don't have any rail up there anymore.
So what is the status of HB 578 right now?
Well, it got out of committee, and there were a couple of technical problems with it, so we're going to amend it, and it's sitting on the amending order in the House of Representatives right now, and I think we're going to get to that tomorrow.
Okay. Do you anticipate any changes that will make it not the bill that you hoped it would be, or do you think it'll be a stronger bill?
Well, when you get a lot more eyes on a bill, people ask questions, and there were a couple of things in that bill that needed to be clarified, because it could have been interpreted one way or another, and we want to have a narrow interpretation of it. And so it's going to make the bill better to get these amendments on.
Okay, that's the point. Okay, now, you wanted to talk about the Farm Freedom Act, House Bill 431. Tell us about that.
Well, that's a bill that's been launched in about a half dozen states around the country. I think only Florida has actually gotten it done. But what this bill would do is it would deregulate the relationship between what we're defining as an informed consumer and a farmer or rancher. So that you could, if you're aware of how a particular farmer or rancher operates their farm, how they produce their produce or their product, that you could go to that farm or ranch and buy food directly from the farmer without having that relationship regulated by the government.
That sounds like an uphill battle.
That is a big uphill battle, and I'm not going to get it done this year. I probably am going to have to sit down with about 25 groups and find out what their concerns are and figure out how to satisfy them. And I've gotten started. I've probably had about 5 meetings so far, but there's a lot more work on that to get done before I'm going to have a bill that I want to have a public hearing on and try to run through the system.
When I was a kid, we used to go to a farm, and to a dairy farm, and we'd get our milk in these great big glass things, and the cream would settle up to the top, and it was absolutely wonderful.
And you lived to tell about it.
And I lived to tell about it, right. And we'd get eggs from some farmers' friends and stuff. So I guess you're talking about kind of turning the clock back and being able to do some of those things, but with the way things are run now, the way that farms are run now, it seems like there's a lot of restrictions on them anyway.
Well, there really is, and kind of the fly in the ointment now is at the federal level. The federal government's given the Department of Homeland Security sort of jurisdiction over all food production.
The Department of Homeland Security
has jurisdiction over all food production, and so that's going to make the whole issue more complicated. But I think it's something we need to pursue because we have a very sophisticated economy where we have sort of next in time inventory delivery. And so if we have any kind of a little hiccup in our economy and we can't meet this next in time way of doing business, which minimizes inventories, at the local store, then we're going to have a problem. And so I think it would be wise if we had strong local agricultural economies where our people were used to going out to the farm and getting food directly from a farmer in our local area.
Do you know there's a place in Canyon County, a couple years ago I remember driving by, that they just had a table out there, and it looked like it was stuff from their farm, maybe that they had gleaned out of the field or whatever. And they just left it out there for anybody who needed it to take. And I thought that was kind of a neat thing. Mm-hmm. But we do have farmers markets and such. How are those regulated, do you know?
Well, produce and fruit are not regulated at all currently in the state of Idaho. And so you can sell those at a farmer market without any kind of regulation. But we're not going to address farmers market in my bill because the different farmers markets organizations, they kind of have their own internal rules that they require their the vendors to follow. And so I'm not going to tamper with that. But if we can get this bill done, then maybe we'll go talk to the farmers markets folks after that and see if they want the state to do anything on that level. Okay.
Let's turn to education for a minute. Cliff, you had a charter bill that, has it actually been signed, or where is that?
No, it's through the legislature and it's on its way to the governor's desk. So we're anticipating the governor signing on and hopefully having an opportunity to have a press release about it and such, and involve a few folks that have been working hard on this for several years.
So tell us about it.
It's a charter cap bill. So what it does is remove the limitations on charter schools, which are a form of public schools in Idaho. We currently have a cap in place that says you can have no more than 6 per year and 1 per school district. And that's regardless of whether the school district is in a rural area or urban, or how many kids happen to live there. For example, Meridian has more than twice the average number of kids in K through 12 per household than state average. And it's kind of an artificial cap. It was put in place as we were first getting into charter schools in the late 90s in Idaho. And then in 2004, we put in place the Charter Commission, and we had charter reform on a more overall change in code and provisions for charter schools. And a lot has happened since then. Charter schools are very, very hard to get started. And I think the average timeline or process from initiation to authorization and breaking ground and getting a facility up is like over 2 years. It's a very long process.
When we come back from the break, I want to continue talking about this and maybe an explanation of what charter schools actually are.
Sure.
We'll be right back.